Yes, go ahead.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As a teacher, I possess a tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decide whether a crisis will be escalated and a child humanized. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Africa ELTA monthly webinar. This month, Africa ELTA is exploring the topic motivation in language learning. And the presenter is Irene Manganga from Tanzania. Ladies and gentlemen, let's join hands with me and welcome Irene. Irene, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. My name is Irene Maganga, English language teacher from Tanzania, found in East Africa. I teach in a secondary school to the students aged 14 to 18 years old. And today I'm going to present on the topic motivating students in language learning. I'm going to share the screen first. So our topic is motivating students in language learning. I have the outline, whereby we are going to look at what is motivation, the importance of motivation, and then I've chosen 3 kinds of motivation we can do to our students in classroom, that is praises, rewards, and group discussion. Along the way, I'm going to share my own experience in the classroom settings, and then we will conclude on the topic. So for starters, I would like you to answer my first question, which states that, what is motivation? You can share your answer on the chat box and I'll be reading. What is motivation? So I can see one says that it's the inner force that drives you to do things. Still waiting for others to answer. Okay, motivation is encouragement. And the second question is, do you motivate your students? As a teacher, do you motivate your students? Okay, I see various answers. Yes, people say I do, and it is highly important to create an environment for motivation. Okay. So moving on, motivation, we can say, is a reason for a person to act in a particular way. Or in other words, we can say it's that force behind any human action. Whenever a person wants to do something, that thing that is forcing him or her to do a certain thing, that is what you call a motivation. In the case of English language learning, there are various forces that can force a student to learn English. Others do learn English just for communication skills. Others do learn English so as to achieve business goals. Others learn English just to communicate with people on the internet. So all these things that force these students to learn English are what we call motivation. And as a teacher, if you have a motivated class, a motivated students, they will always be excited to learn. They want to learn from you. They want to learn the language, but they also participate fully in the classroom activities. That is, whether you are doing group works, you are doing pair works, whether you are giving them exercise, they will participate fully because they are motivated to learn. There are various importance of motivation. If we're motivating our students, there are various importances, and I'm going to just explain a few. The first one is that motivation helps the learner to achieve personal goal. Taking an example of a person who wants to do business, an international business, we all know that English language is language that is spoken all over the world. So taking an example of a person traveling from Tanzania to USA, to China, to Kenya, to Uganda, to Mozambique. So this person would have to learn English language so as to communicate with people that he or she is going to do business with. So the force behind the motivation of this learner to learn English language is that business goal. So the person is learning English language so as to achieve his goal, that is business. So this is the first importance. Also, motivating students helps to build that friendly relationship between the teacher and the students. When a teacher motivates students, as a result, the students will be able to open up and tell the teacher whether they understand you or if they want you to explain something more or if they want you to change your teaching methodology. If you build that friend relationship with your students when you're motivating them, then the students will be able to open up to you and tell you things such as giving you feedbacks for your teaching. The third one is motivation helps in self-development. Taking an example, as a teacher, you are having students who are always coming late to class. So when they start coming early and you motivate that behavior, you praise that behavior, these students will eventually change from coming late to class to coming early simply because you have motivated them. So this means they will have that self-development, and this will be thanks to the teacher who has motivated the student. So according to Deci 1971, there are two types of motivation. The first one is intrinsic motivation, and the second one is extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is when we are praising or we are motivating the students according to their inner characteristics, the inborn characteristics. For example, when you are listening to a singer and she has a beautiful voice, then you can praise or you can motivate praising that beautiful voice by saying maybe like, oh, you're having such a beautiful voice. So when you're praising that voice, that is some kind of intrinsic motivation. Also, going back to the example that I've given you of a person who wants to achieve a business goal, that motivation that comes from that person, from the inner part of the person, that is what we call intrinsic motivation. So for the second one is extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation, this is the force that comes from outside. It can be from environment or from the government or from the parents or from the teachers. Taking an example in Tanzania, our students from primary level, they are learning all the other subjects in Kiswahili. and their language of communication in primary school is Kiswahili. But when they reach in secondary school, they have to change their language of communication from Kiswahili to English. So when they reach in secondary school and they have to change, then it's the environment that is forcing these students to change from speaking Kiswahili to speaking English. So as teachers, we have to motivate these students to learn the language, because sometimes they might not be willing to learn the language. They are not interested to learn the language. So we have to use the outside force to motivate these students so that they can learn the language and acquire all the language skills, that is listening, reading, writing, as well as speaking. So when you are talking to motivating students in the classroom, English language classroom, we are talking about the extrinsic force. We are talking about the outside force, things that the teacher can do in class so as to motivate these students so that they can acquire all the 4 language skills, so that these students will be able to write in English, they will be able to speak in English, they will be able to listen and understand whenever someone is speaking in English, and they will also be able to read English books as well as English texts. So the first motivation that a teacher can give to a student is praises. So a praise is just an act of approving of the student's achievement. It's an act of approving any student's achievement. And these are divided into 3. The first one is personal praise. This one is not used that much in the classes. The second one is effort-based praise. This one is very important in the classroom setting. So effort-based praise, this is when the teacher is praising the efforts of the students. Taking an example of a student that is trying to learn how to write in English. In the first day, he or she can write 2 words, and then she can write 5 words, 10 words. So when the teacher is praising that effort of that student to try to write in English, you are praising the students, you are telling her to keep up the good work, to do more, to go back and read. Then this student at the end of the day, she will be able to write a paragraph, she can be able to write an essay, and she can also be able even to write a book in English. So praising the effort in the classrooms gives the students the outcome which is positive, that is writing. Going to speaking, when a student is speaking maybe a sentence today and you are praising that student that she has done a good work, tomorrow she'll be able to speak even 2 sentences to 3 sentences. At the end of the day, this student will be able to communicate with people by speaking in English, and this is what we call the positive outcomes that comes from the effort-based praises. The other kind of praise is behavior-specific praises. This is when the teacher is praising the student's behavior. This time I'm taking an example for a student maybe who is not doing homeworks. The teacher is providing homeworks, but the student does not do these homeworks. So as teachers, we do sit down with these kinds of students and talk to them, and we are hoping that they will change. So when they start changing by doing the homework and bringing it to the teacher, you have to praise that behavior so that at the end of the day, this student will be able to do more homeworks and collect them on time, when this will become regularly, and it will be the behavior of this student. So praising the behavior, the changing behavior of the students will also lead to the positive outcomes in the classroom setting. The students who are praised, who are motivated due to their efforts as well as their changes in the classroom, at the end of the day, these will learn all the language skills that we require them to learn. They will be able to write, they will be able to speak, they will be able to read and listen in due time. So I have examples of praises that you can give your students, such as congratulations, good work, and others. And here I have a confession from when I was in primary school. When I was in primary school, this is when my teachers used to praise me. I remember that whenever I was given an exercise, let's say it's a 10 question exercise, and if you get 10 over 10, the teacher would write vizuri sana, which is excellent or very good in English. And if you get 9 or 8 over 10, the teacher will write good, that is vizuri in Kiswahili, since we are using Kiswahili in primary school. So these small gestures made me to go back and read more. If I get a good today, I would want to get a very good tomorrow. If I get a very good, then I want to get an excellent. They also did this in examinations. If you get an A, you get a very good or excellent. And if you get a B, then you get a good, and some other words like keep up the good work. So these small gestures made me to go back and read more, made me to participate in activities, made me to do my exercises. They motivated me to learn more. They motivated me to speak. They motivated me to write. So praising your students in class will motivate them to learn. And I just did a little research in some schools from where I am from. The teachers nowadays, we don't praise our students, whether in class or whether they are doing exercises or whether they are participating in some activities. You can find a teacher just taking a student's exercise book and marking and move on. They don't write anything, they don't comment, they don't give feedback. So as a teacher, I am advising other teachers today to go back and sit. And when you are doing activities with your students, make sure you praise them. Make sure you praise when they write something. Make sure you praise them when they speak. Make sure you praise them when they read correctly, so that they will change from good to better and from better to best. So we are going to another thing, which is rewards. And I have some other questions for you. I'll be reading your answers on the chat box. The first question is, as a teacher, do you reward your students? And if yes, mention the things that you have rewarded your students so far. I will be reading the chat box. So Amira is giving bonus grades to her students. That's her way of motivating them. So Gracia is giving stickers, candies, and other things according to the level. Okay, I can see extra playtime. Okay, I can see you people are motivating your students. That is very good. Very good. Okay. So Adama is giving chocolates to the students. I wish I was your student so I can eat these chocolates. So we are going to rewards. Rewards, these are the things that a teacher can give to a student so as to recognize the achievement that the student has done. So far I've given my students various rewards. As you can see in the picture, these are some things to explain the rewards that I've given to my students. I've given to my students, some of them have gotten money, some of them have gotten sweets, others have gotten breakfast, others have gotten lunch. It only depends on what we were doing in the class. So I'm going to explain how I reward my students in class, why I'm giving others sweets and others are getting breakfast. So we do have these tests in schools. So whenever a student scores the highest marks in my test, I give them breakfast money. So please don't ask me why breakfast money. The answer is very easy. I give them breakfast money because it's cheap. So whenever a student scores the highest marks in the class, I give them breakfast money. And when we are doing some other activities in class, such as games or group works or role plays, those students who participate fully in these activities, I sometimes give them sweets, so as to motivate them to participate the next time. And to the students who just tend to ask questions, answer questions in class, participate in pair works and group works, I sometimes give them breakfast as well as lunch. It only depends on my pocket on that day. So if I have a lot of money, I'll give them lunch. If I have few coins, I'll give them breakfast. But I also do motivate students who tend to improve in class. We all know that sometimes you start in a class with a student who you think it's a grade D students, let's say grade D students, and then eventually this student tend to change from getting D to getting B or C. So these students who show improvement in the class, they tend to speak in class. They show some improvement. I do give them some materials. I have English language materials that I do photocopy. So I do give them these materials so that they can go back and learn and improve more their grades. So these are how I do grade my students and give them rewards. So it only depends on what we are doing in the classroom. I reward my students according to the activities we are doing in class, whether it's a test or it's a game or it's any other activity like role play. So as a teacher, I also advise you today to motivate your students, to give them rewards whenever possible. If you can afford it, you reward them. Students do like rewards. They always ask for rewards if you try to start giving them rewards. But there are some advantages and disadvantages of rewarding students in class. The advantages is that if you are rewarding them for tests like I do, so the students will always get better results because you are rewarding them for the test they are doing. So they will improve their results. And if you are rewarding them for other activities, then the class will become motivated. These are the advantages of rewarding your students in the class. The disadvantages of rewarding your students in class, the first one is that the students will always feel pressured. I know this, but I'm still using rewards. So when you are rewarding your students, let's say the way I'm rewarding mine when they are doing tests. So when you tell the students that you are going to have a test maybe on Monday, the students will be pressured so that they can get the reward. They have that pressure, they want to get the highest marks. So instead of learning and understanding, they will eventually go back and cram so that they can get the reward. So this is not very good. Also, rewards can be seen as bribes, that as a teacher, you are bribing your students to get better grades. So some people may see it as a bribe. So when you're rewarding your students, please try to reward them on different activities so that they won't be addicted and feel like you're bribing them to get better results in the examinations. And the last one is group discussions. So I just put the pictures of my students in their groups. They are doing their group discussions. I know that most teachers nowadays, we are using group discussions as a form of making students participate and be engaged in the classroom settings. So when you're grouping your students into groups, please try to mix students with different abilities so that even the shy ones will be able to speak up and open up. So when you are putting your students into group, please mix them according to their abilities so that they can think, they can participate, and they can speak. So group discussion is a way of motivating students to learn from one another. Sometimes there are these students who might not understand the teacher, but they can understand when the other student is teaching them. So when you put them into groups, this will help these students to learn from their peers. When they are in these groups Obviously, they will be discussing. That means they will be speaking, they will be thinking, they will be listening to one another. So when you're putting students into a groups, then you'll be improving their thinking capacity, you'll be improving their listening abilities, you'll be improving their speaking abilities as well as their writing abilities, because they will be writing something that is they are discussing. And then you will tell them to stand up and present whatever they have been discussing. Then this means your students will be able to speak up and express their views. As a result, they'll be able to improve the confidence of standing up and speaking in front of people. So even the shy students will be able to stand up and give out their opinions. This will motivate them to speak, to listen to one another, to read, and sometimes to write. So please use group discussions in your classrooms because they motivate your students to learn the English language skills, the 4 English language skills. Also, using multi-group discussions in classrooms helps the students. Instead of the students to just listen to the teacher and receiving whatever the teacher is saying, they will be able to process the information on themselves. They will do things on their own and they will come up with their own ideas, which will be great for your class. So group discussions are very helpful in our classroom settings. And I did forget one thing that I remembered now, so I'm going to say it anyway. It's about praises. When you're praising your students, there are various things you have to consider. The first one is that when you're praising your students, make sure you are being sincere. Don't praise them like you're just praising. Be sincere. It should come from your heart that you are praising this student. And when you are praising the student, make sure that you are being specific. What are you praising? Are you praising the effort or are you praising the behavior? Or are you praising the outcome? So be specific on what you are praising. Make sure the student understands what you are praising. If you are praising the effort, make sure that student understands that you are praising the effort so that she can do more. And when you are praising the students, always it's better to praise the process rather than the outcome. When you're praising the process, the student will be able to go back and do more activities, perform things. If it is a group discussion, so she or he will be able to state things in the group, give out their opinions and things like that. So when you're praising your students, make sure you praise that process and not the outcome. I know in many places, teachers tend to praise the outcome. If the students, maybe it's an examination and she or he scores the highest marks, then people tend to praise those marks. I have an example, a real life example in our country. People do praise students who get divisions 1, 2, 3 in their national examinations. Even schools do praise these students and give them rewards. So sometimes instead of giving rewards to students who score the highest marks, you can give rewards to the ones who are improving from being a student getting F to getting B or to getting C. So if you are motivating the students who are trying to improve in their speaking abilities or reading abilities or whether it's writing, then they'll be able to be motivated and learn more and to practice more on these abilities. Also, the last thing in that when you're praising your students, please avoid comparison. Don't compare student A to student B. When you are praising a student A, make sure you are focusing on student A. Don't compare him or her to student B. So these are the things you have to consider as a teacher when you are praising your students. And I guess we are going to conclude now. So as a teacher, I have talked about 3 methods of praising our students in the classroom, but you can find more. If you want, you can do your research and find more. So when you are motivating your students in class, make sure you use different kinds of motivating them. Don't use praises alone. No, you can use praises, then you can use rewards. Just make sure you are mixing these methods of motivating your students so that they can become better speakers, they can become better writers, they can become good listeners and understand whatever people are saying, and they can become good readers. So please try to mix these ways of motivating your students in class. Don't rely on one way because people are just relying on rewards. Don't rely on rewards. Use praises and group discussions and other methods as well. Using these different ways will guarantee that your students will participate fully in class, because when you are motivating different activities, then they will participate in the activities, they will do the exercise and other works that you are giving them in the process. So please try to mix up these ways of motivating your students so that they'll be able to learn and take advantage of whatever you are doing in the classroom session. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Asante for those who understand Kiswahili. Shukran for the ones who also use that word. Thank you. You can now ask questions and I'll try to answer you to the best of my abilities. You
Uh,
are welcome for the questions.
okay, so this is a very good presentation. And now it is time for questions. Your questions are welcome. And by the way, Irene, what do you think about punishment and motivation? Uh, do you have any idea to share with our uh, audience about punishment and motivation? Thank you.
Punishment, okay, punishment and motivation.
Yeah.
Uh, I do use both. I sometimes punish my students. It only depends on what kind of punishment I give them. For example, when a student is lazy in class, I can give her punishment like go back and write. If it is a writing activity, she can go back and write several paragraphs in English. That is some sort of punishment to her because it will take a lot of time for this student to do this activity. But this punishment will also be to my advantage as a teacher. I'll be teaching these students how to write. So I do advise people to punish students, but make sure that punishment has a lot of benefits rather than having a lot of disadvantages. There are some punishments which have a lot of disadvantages. Take an example of teachers beating students. If you tend to beat your students in school, sometimes the students will hate the school, they will hate the teacher, and they will hate the subject. So when you're choosing a punishment for the student, make sure it's beneficial to both you and the students. That is what I think on the punishment part. I hope I've
Uh,
answered the question.
we still have some questions. How do you solve the issue of food safety as the source of rewarding? And why don't you rely to intangible things like books as rewards? Uh, could you please answer that question?
Okay, I have said along my presentation that the students who show improvements in their studies, I do give them some pamphlets. These are copies of books and some materials. So I do give my students copies of books and materials, those who are improving, so that they can go back and learn more. On the issue of food safety, I'm not sure about other countries, but in Tanzania, the foods found in around the school grounds, they are always safe because the school makes sure that these food are safe. So sometimes that is why I give them breakfast money instead of the breakfast itself, because sometimes I also do think about the safety of the food. That is why sometimes I give them money. But on terms of books and other materials, as I've said, I do reward my students with materials and some copies of pamphlets on English language notes.
Okay, Our next question to the presenter is, among those strategies you've shared during your presentation, which one uh, has been the most effective uh, during your experiment?
The most effective one. I do use different methods, and I think they're all effective in a way, because when you're praising students by when they are doing an exercise, it motivates them. Also, rewards tend to motivate students a lot, but if in a scale of 1 to 10, then rewards is the most effective way, but it relies much on money. So the cheapest one is praises, but the most effective one is rewards. It gives you the immediate effects.
Okay. Next question. Yes. Do you think motivation is objective or subjective? Uh,
Hmm.
uh, some some of the someone in the audience would like you um, to elaborate on the subjectivity and objectivity of motivation, and what is your opinion?
So I can say motivating students is subjective because the teacher chooses whichever way she or he motivates the students. So it only depends on the teacher, so it is subjective.
So you don't think motivation is objective?
Sorry, I'm struggling with network.
You said that, well, according to you, motivation is subjective, and we still wonder if there are not cases in which motivation is objective.
Hello?
Yes, hello. It is like Irene is having some technical problem. Hello, Irene. Hello, hello. Ladies and gentlemen, as you could, if you have just joined us, you are then following Africa ELTA monthly webinar. And today's presentation is led by Irene Manganga from Tanzania. She is presenting on motivation in language learning. Irene, are you back? Hello? So we are now answering questions, and we are now answering questions. Uh, yes, if you have some questions, it is time for you to, to post, to write them in the chat box, and then we will definitely answer them. Uh, hello? So Irene, are you back? Irene, are you back? Okay, so as yes, as I was saying, you are listening to Africa ELTA uh, webinar, monthly webinar, and as I have just said, we are now today welcoming Irene Manganga from Tanzania. She's presenting on motivation in language learning. And uh, we are now receiving questions. If you have any questions, it is time for you to just ask your questions in the chat box. Irene, are you back? Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Irene, so we were talking of motivation, and there is a question about group students, because during your presentation, you said that you try also to use a grouping, and someone would like to know, how do you group a student in a mixed abilities class? Could you please share light on this? Thank you.
Okay. So we all have classes where the students have different abilities. So as a teacher, first you have to know your students so that you know who is having which ability. We have the students who are bright. We have students who are always talkative. We have students who are always shy in class. So when I'm grouping these students, I tend to mix them. The shy ones with the talkative ones, with the bright ones, with the lazy ones. So I do know that when I'm grouping them, I make sure that there is one person who can control the group, the person who can be a leader in this group, so that she or he can control the whole class or the whole group, so that that student who is a leader can make sure that everyone participate in these activities. So that is how I do in my classroom group discussions. I do mix them, and I give them a leader who will be able to control the group and make sure that everyone contributes something. I hope
So
I've answered the question.
I hope so. I hope so. Uh, well, yes, earlier you have been asked to to give your opinion on on punishment and motivation. Now there is another question on discipline and motivation. Uh, any idea on discipline and motivation?
Discipline. So I think discipline falls on that category of behavior specific motivation. There are some students who are in discipline in classroom, and there are some others who have got discipline. So the ones who are changing from one stage to the other to a better stage, you can motivate these ones either by giving them rewards or praising them, but mostly praises because rewards is too expensive. And the ones who are continuing on the good path, those who have got a good discipline class, they are always quiet, they listen to the teacher, they participate. Whenever they are told to speak, they are speaking, they are reading. So you can also motivate these ones. It is always better to motivate the behavior of the students. So discipline falls on the behavior of students in the classroom setting.
Okay, you talk of praises as one of the instruments you use to motivate learners, and some would like to know if learners could definitely appreciate all the praises. Uh, and the next question is on which basis, okay, do you reward students?
Can we start with the first one? I think you've asked two questions at once.
Yes, you have two questions at once. Uh, the first one is uh, uh, will the learners appreciate all the praises? I mean, because you talk of praises during your presentation as an instrument of motivation, and some people, of the participants would like to know if all learners appreciate all praises.
So to my students so far, I've always praised their effort and the change of behavior in the class. So they do appreciate the praises. I can testify to that. They do appreciate the praises, and I know that praises is a very good motivation tools to the students. So they do appreciate. If it is a positive praise, the students always like to be praises.
Okay. Talking of praises, you you use congratulations, right? Uh, Very good. You have given some specific examples. And what do you think about African praises? Do you use African praises to praise students?
I'm sorry, Flavian, when you're talking about African praises, what do you mean?
Oh, you see, in our African cultures and traditions, there are ways to praise children. There are ways to praise people. Uh, for example, I'm from Benin here, and in
Mm-hmm.
Benin, there is a way of motivating people by praising them. When, for example, a couple has a problem, most of the time the ladies, okay, will start
Mm-hmm.
praising her husband, and uh, this is what I mean by African praises. And since we're dealing with African students, why not then use some praises deriving from the culture? Uh, what do you think?
So if we have some cultural praises, the African cultural praises, as a teacher, you can just look at them and see if they are beneficial to the students or not, and if they are practicable, if you can practice them in the classroom setting. If they fit in the classroom setting, then you can go ahead and use them. There's no harm on using any form of praising to the students. There is definitely no harm if it is practicable and beneficial to the students.
Okay, so you convene with the use of African praises, right?
Yes, if it will bring positive outcome.
All right. Good. You. We still have many questions here, and yes, most students in Tanzania, okay, lack motivation in using English language. And you, since Irene, you are now advising us on motivation. How do you encourage and motivate students in your context, okay, to practice English speaking?
So I do understand that in Tanzania, we as
Yes.
teachers, most
Yes.
of us don't motivate our students, and our students are not interested in learning the language, English language. They don't have that interest. So in the part of speaking skills, I always use rewards. I see that rewards works for them. So I use rewards on speaking activities. If they are role playing, that means they are speaking. If they are acting on something, that means they are speaking. So when they are speaking and I see that the students are improving, I do reward them so that they can go on speaking and speaking. At the end of the day, they will be speaking differently in different activities, even around the school. So on the speaking part, rewards work a lot compared to praises.
Okay, someone is still raising the question of the issue of punishment and rewards, and people would like you to tell them if there is any side effect on the learner's speaking and listening performance. And if you could also provide some example to back up your answers, this will be good.
Okay, punishment and rewards.
Side
As,
effects.
I, as I've said before, that when you're punishing a student, make sure that that punishment has some benefits to both you as a teacher and the student. So, for example, when you have students like we are having in Tanzania in secondary school, they are not interested on learning English language. As a teacher, you first have to motivate them. If you see there is a need of punishing them, you can punish them. For example, you want a student to speak in class. I think the only punishment you can give these students is to make sure that she practices in speaking activities. Making sure that these students practices in speaking activities will guarantee that she'll be able to speak at the end of the day. If you decide to use sticks or strokes, as the others call them, then the student will neglect the class. She won't be able to speak and she will hate the language. So the only way we can do to punish these students is by giving them positive punishment, which will help them to practice whichever skill we want them to achieve. If it is speaking, make sure that you are punishing the students to speak more instead of staying quiet. If it is in writing skills, make sure that you are giving these students a piece of exercise or a homework so that she or he can go back and write a lot of sentences. If it is in reading, then whenever you go into class and you want the students to read, make sure that this student is chosen to read each time you want someone to read. This is a kind of punishment which is very positive in the classroom setting. And I hope if we try to do this, we can achieve that these students will be able to have all these four language skills in our countries.
All right. That issue of African praises is still raised here. And so someone would like to know if we can really talk of African praises when dealing with English language teaching. Uh, 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 yes, Irene.
I think, Flavian, you're an expert on that. You can help me on the African praises. You seem to
uh,
be an expert.
it is just an idea I'm sharing with you, and uh, yes, definitely. If there are ways of doing things in our context, why not integrate this in the English language teaching? I think this is possible uh, and doable. Uh, yes, we can continue with that debate uh, uh, after the webinar. Uh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, you you are listening to uh, Africa ELTA monthly webinar, and this month we are exploring motivation in language learning and teaching. And as you can see, our presenter is Lady Irene Manganga. Manganga is a teacher of English in Tanzania. Uh, now we're going to give her the floor uh, to, to, to tell us those techniques. Okay, there is a question what are some techniques you use to motivate your learners? Irene? Hello, Irene? Hello. So, based on the presentation of Irene, we can say without uh, hesitation that motivation uh, plays an outstanding role in language teaching and learning. And as a teacher, we have, based on the presentation, we have to always motivate our learners because through motivation, our learners have more envy, they have more encouragement to do what they intend to do. Uh, well, we're going to give the floor to Irene to conclude this presentation. Irene, what is your final conclusion for this presentation?
Hello?
Irene? Yes. Could you please
Oh, I
conclude?
hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you now. Can you now conclude your final words about this presentation?
Okay. So as English language teachers, we all want our students to achieve the 4 language skills, that is listening, writing, speaking, as well as reading. So my advice to you today is that you start to motivate your students. I am very sure that if we as teachers motivate our students, whether in class or outside class, they will be able to achieve these skills. If you are motivating a student who wants to speak and is trying to speak, at the end of the day, this student will be able to speak in English. If you are motivating a student who wants to learn how to write English, then this student will achieve that skill of writing. And if you're motivating a student who wants to achieve the listening ability, as a teacher, your role, you can be just speaking to the student in English so that you can see if she can listen and understand you. So practicing these skills with the students will also help them to achieve whatever they want to achieve in their life. So as a teacher, I advise you today to motivate your students so that we can all achieve what we want our students to achieve, that is the 4 English language skills. I'm very sure that is the goal for every teacher, that the students will be able to read, listen, speak, and write. So through motivation, all this can be achieved. Start motivating your students today, and as they say, you will thank me later. Thank you so much.
This is Africa ELTA monthly webinar. Uh, I am Flavien Lamation, the moderator, and the presenter is Irene Mangaga. We would like to show our appreciation to all of you who have uh, taken, who have participated, taken your time and participating in this webinar out of packed schedule. We would like to invite you for our next webinar, probably in May. You're going to, for that, you're going to receive the webinar invitation. And thank you, everyone, and we wish you all the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.